Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we've got three large events for pretty much the first competitive weekend for the OP13 format for the English version of the One Piece card game. We've got the Versus Games Online Treasure Cup, we've got the PEC Occitania's French Regionals that happened this past weekend, as well as the TAC Games Online Treasure Cup. And real quick, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of content for the One Piece card game, and you guys don't want to miss it. Also, if you guys want deck lists for any of these events and many others, you can find them on my website, Eggman Events. We've got all of these. We've been also adding to our deck list table, which has kind of events around the world, some unofficial events, some events in Japan as well. So there's a lot of deck lists for you guys, and let's just jump on into it. So first, let's just kind of address the elephant in the room. It's very clear what this kind of format looks like, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I think this is a format that there's going to be a lot of polarizing opinions. A lot of people love this format. A lot of people do not like this format, and it really kind of depends on if you like playing Emu, Ace, or Zoro, right? It's pretty clear across these three events. These are the decks that are just doing the best by a pretty wide margin, right? For all of these, Emu was somewhere between 25 to like 50% of the top cut, which is quite a bit. Ace is also pretty much up there, very similar, a little probably a step lower at times. French regionals 5 and 5 for it, and then 6 and 5 for the TAC game. So there are just a lot of people on this deck. Obviously, it's a new deck, right? It's a new deck from OP13. It's and a lot of people want to try out the new stuff, but it's very, very clear, right? And that kind of opinion for it. That also means that if you guys kind of notice, there's just a little bit less content for me to make personally. I'm not trying to say that I'm not supporting this game, because I 110% are, but like there's just like what am I supposed to do? How many Emu deck profiles am I going to go over, right? So it's going to be weird, right? This is kind of like one of the most solved formats I think we've gotten on release for this card game. We've always kind of had this issue a little bit because we have always been behind Japan. This is going to change next year as we get to the same point as them, as we catch up sometime in 2026. But because of this, right, it's going to be like this for just a couple more sets as well. But again, I'd say we've been pretty blessed with the last for most this year we've had these kind of things where we've either had like more cards in our format, where like the releases of some star decks, or we've had this thing where we've had restriction list hit us first. So it's not always been solved day one, but this is I think the exception. I think this is the one format where like these are the decks that are clearly very good. These are the 45 cards that you have to run, choose 5 other cards from there, and that's kind of what it's going to be like. So there's going to be like there are some decks that we were able to also get in the top 16, which were not part of those three. We're going to go over all the unique ones. We did have 9 different decks top across 3 events for 5-12 events with 9 top 16. So not like horrible, but it's very clear, right, that these decks are here. They're here to stay. These are ones that are going to top every event and be likely the ones to win. And if you have any if you have a deck that's maybe good against 2 of them at times, like a 50-50, you can kind of sneak in there, which I think there have been decks that do that. That can be good. We also do kind of have like 2 different changes coming up for our format, where one, we get some promos. It looks like they're not going to be legal until January. That's kind of been the understanding from it. So nothing in the near term with those, and then we also have EBO3 eventually coming out too, but I think that's being part in our OP14, so it's like a whole different like format for us in general too. But we're going to go over the top placing decks for each one of these unique leaders too. I'm going to be a little bit more brief on stuff like Ace, Emu, and Zoro, just because sincerely, I input all of these deck lists. I've looked at about the 50, almost 50. There are 48 deck lists for these 3 events, and they are so similar. And you guys know what these look like a lot of the time, so I'm going to probably sneak through them. But I also will say conversely, even though these decks are mildly easy to deck build compared to others, there's just like less choices to do so. Piloting for these decks is pretty intense, right? And if you see like a high level, you've seen a lot of people just make some like really intense guides on how to play Ace versus Emu, Emu versus Emu, Ace versus Ace, right? There's just a lot of like tiny intricate things to do between these matchups that make a huge difference down the line. So I will say that this channel's never been a channel that deep dives into like the high level complexity of like high meta stuff. So you're not likely going to see any content from me for that because of that. But I do kind of like to have like these kind of more low to the ground some of these guys that help people get into these formats. And so if you guys want to know what emu lists look like, what the meta looks like, that's what we're going to look at. So anyways, that ramble aside, we're going to go into this. We're going to start off with our first deck deck list, we're going to have Emu. So we had two winners playing Emu. We had Eric and Thomas with their build. So this is Eric's build and this is Thomas's build. And you will notice it is, you have to like really squint to see what the difference between these two builds are, right? There has been like a discussion if Stussy is in the deck or not. You'll see people play it or not play it. I think that's like the one decision for it between the two. For Eric's build, they're playing two copies of After All These Years, I'm Losing My Edge. So you get to counter up to one, get plus 1,000. Then if you had 10 more cards in your trash, which is so dang easy for this deck to do, add up to one black character card with a cost of 3 or less from your trash to your hand. So that means that you can get like a copy of the Saint Charlotte for later. You can get a 2K to make this a plus 3K. If you want to add a blocker to your hand too, if you need to get a Shirahoshi to your hand, that's also viable for it as well. So pretty flexible, right? We also do have like the world's equilibrium cannot be maintained forever, right? So not terrible there. And it's kind of weird, like just how defensive Emu can be, and it's just really hard to like get that last damage, even though it's just a 4 life leader for it. So that was one decision, and that's really it, right? That's that. You'll see, like, besides some like minor ratio changes, these decks are nearly identical, despite being like very far removed, right, between the two of them. So one of them was for the Pieco France regionals, and one was for the Versus Games, so it's an online regional in North America. I will wager to guess that Eric and Thomas have had no communication ever, and their decks are like almost identical, right? So, and this is like the first weekend that Emu is viable right now, right? So that just kind of, I think, shows to me that this deck is just very strong, very pilot centered too, but there's not really any changes you need to make. It's been a very, very solid deck, and I'm not going to say this is a tier 0 deck, but it is like just a very, very known quantity for it. So you guys will have like your little spice for ratios a lot of the time, but it's going to be very difficult to kind of break from this mold of what Emu is doing, both, you know, playing as Emu and also playing against Emu. It's just going to do what it wants to do. But I think it's a really big accomplishment to get these finishes here. Eric was first in Swiss, and then Thomas was able to win after a top cut as well. So big accomplishment for both Eric and Thomas for their finishes there. All right, next we've got Ace, and this is Kenneth's build. So this is the winner from the TAC Online Treasure Cup. And I will also be honest, like I was going through a lot of Aces. I'm like, oh, you know, there's some variety of choices. Very, very, very similar builds as well for most of them, right? I think there's a decision on which Whitebeard you choose, right? So obviously the new 10 drop has been fantastic, a very, very good card, and worth playing in this deck, right? Especially if you're able to play it off for 8 with the I Am Whitebeard event as well. So not only is that very good, but there has been like a decision if you play the Tax Beard, right? I think there's that decision, and then if you play the 6-drop Yamato, the red one or not, that's like the other decision. But other than that, like most of these decks look exactly like this one. So I think that 3 red rock is like one more red rock than I would expect for this deck. I think most people are playing 1 or 2, so 3 is the most I've really seen for it, but I do agree that it can get some good work there. We do have like our Izo, Otama, Garp, Thatch, so some good 1-drop stats, being able to, you know, play it down later, but also being able to get some removal potentially with it. I think mostly you're just using it to go down from 1 life to 0, so you can, you know, turn on a Gol.D.Roger that you played earlier, and then like the rest of it's the standard Ace stuff. So I was surprised there are a lot of people who are just playing 4 copies of Jozu outright, which I don't think is a bad card, but I don't think it's like the card that I was expecting immediately to be put at 4 copies. Uta's been really, really good because it's just a 2-cost blocker, which is absurd because it is a 6-cost on the board, and this card is just fantastic. This is a little overstated in my mind, but this meta is just so like broken, is that like this card doesn't feel broken, even though when you read it, and if it came out like any set before this, you're like, man, that's a lot of value for like a 1K that's also a 5/6. Like, it's really, really crazy. So I don't have much more to say. You guys know how Ace works. Congratulations to Kenneth for their finish with the Ace here. And then to wrap up the trio, we've got Siris with their version of Zoro. Zoro has changed between OP12 and OP13, so it is interesting to see that. There are some just kind of good support cards. We're not playing stuff like 8-drop Mihawk anymore because I think it's a little bit too expensive, and we also do have the new 6-cost law, right? So if you have 1 or less life cards as character gains blocker, then on play you may return 1 of your characters to its owner's hand. Play up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less from your hand rested. So when this deck revolves around your 5-cost Toshigi and 5-cost Cavendish, that ends up being pretty good, being able to just say, oh, I'm going to turn this 1-drop into that. We also do have our 5-drop 6Ks that are also slash types, so if you want to be able to play your Helmeppo or play your like if you have like literally nothing else to play, that's great. And then our last new card is the Roronoa Zoro. This card is just Very, very good too. I feel like I need to find another phrase to say, but being able to say, all right, on play, if your leader has Film or Straw Hat, which we do, gives it set two of your Dawn active, and then every your turn set this character to active. It's going to be very difficult to interact with this card. The fact that you can play it for quote unquote two, the fact that you can play it off this Dracula Mihawk, which is absurd of a start for the deck as well, and then the kind of the rest of the interactions with it. So very strong card there, and then we know what the rest of the kind of Zoro looks like. We got one swag copy of the 10 drop Shanks, which I don't think this card's bad. We're going to see this card again later in the video too, but being able to say, Zoro already just like puts all 10 Dawn on their character sometimes. So what if we just say, let's play a 12k for free, and then this deck is already about like playing cost cheap, or making cheaper cost for all of our big costs, right? The fact that Tashigi can considered cost 2, Cavendish cost 3, Zoro cost 2, Law kind of cheats out some value too. So there's just a lot of ways to be like, well, we're already kind of making our deck around this too, so we can put more and more Dawn on our leaders. So it's kind of like the ultimate example for it. So not much more to say, but congratulations Siris for their finish in the, I think they got second in the TAC games. They did got second in the TAC games event there. So there it is. All right, next up we've got the Zoro and Sanji. So we're kind of breaking into like the more unique deck list, and this is BonoTho's version of the deck. They were able to get to finals for the Versus Games online Treasure Cup, and they end up going fourth after some tiebreakers for it, but a really, really cool finish to see that. If you guys also want to see the finals or just the entire live stream for it, you can find it linked in the description. It's going to be on Twitch. It's also going to likely be uploaded to the Versus Games YouTube here, but it's also on this page if you guys want to see it. I'm sorry you've been spoiled. It is they did lose, but it's a really, really close game, and I highly recommend checking out because this is a really interesting deck that's been getting a lot more views in the last little bit just because of some like incremental green cards that have been coming out. If you guys don't know how Zoro and Sanji works, Dawn times 1 when attacking, once per turn, you may return one of your characters with the cost of 2 or more to its owner's hand to set up to one of your characters with 7k power or less as active. So we kind of already talked about it, but the Mihawk and Zoro combo still works, especially since this does put 2 Dawn active as well. Being able to get some really good draw effects like Perona being a searcher, being able to get that for you can't return it to hand, but you do get like stuff like the Vanderdecken, which is a 2 cost, which you can use to remove any rested body. So you can have stuff like Cody Jones. We have the Korematsu, which is also a slash type character too. We also have the Arlong, which is good for like the Zoro matchup because it can prevent them from attacking for the next turn. And then we also have like our Cavendish, which this card is just, obviously very good draw. 2 trash 1 is fantastic. So, and you don't really care as long as it has a slash type. That's what Mihawk gets to play. So doesn't care about what color the card is. So any of these 4 cost you can end up playing, and then you can just, attack with Zoro, Sanji, return this to your hand, and then you get to set it active. So it's difficult to interact with. So last new card we do have is the Monkey.D.Luffy. So it does have double attack. On play, if your leader is multicolor, set up to 4 of your Dawn cards as active, then you cannot play character cards with a base cost of 5 or more during this turn. So what that means is that you can, it can attack the turn you play it, but if you are able to keep it around with stuff like playing Tashigi, which you can do where you can play Luffy and then Tashigi in the same turn, have the protection there, and then you can attack with it more than once. So it has to be power of 7k or less. So like the first attack would be 7, then you can like attack with Zoro Sanji, restand it, and then you can put as much Dawn as you want to afterwards on it. So a really, really great way to interact with some cards. Double attack is kind of rare in this game, but when it works, it really works. And honestly, a really like individual deck list for this one. You'll see a lot of 4s and 3s to try to fit in all the tech that you need, and it's really cool to see this one do well. So congratulations to BonoTho for their X1 finish for the Versus Games Treasure Cup, and cool to see Zoro Sanji get all the way to the finals undefeated as well. So there it is there. All right, next up you got Nolan Allen's version of the blue and purple Monkey.D.Luffy, and obviously this was like a deck that was really, really present in the OP11 and OP12 format. OP11, it was arguably one of the strongest decks in the game. OP12, it did get some restrictions, but ended up still being very great despite having 9-drop Linlin and 8-drop Katakuri not being allowed in the deck. And then now we're just kind of waiting for a new card in the Gol.D.Roger, but we do get some kind of, waiting card for it, and by waiting card I mean it's the Douglas Bullet from Star Deck 5, which came out like forever ago. So actually remain Dawn once per turn, Dawn -4. Rest of 2 of your opponent's characters cost 6 or less, than this character gains double attack during this turn. This is a really terrifying card. And I think this is a really good meta pick. This isn't the first time I've seen it kind of pop up every once in a while, but the fact that if you're playing against Emu and they're like, well, I'm going to end the turn on 2 blockers that can't be removed, you're like, cool, anyways, I'm going to Douglas Bullet to rest both of them, and then I get to attack 10k double attack, if not more, which is obnoxious for that deck. The fact that you just get to rest 2 blockers, that 6 or less, is just already very, very good for this Douglas Bullet for this interaction. So cool to see. I'd be curious to know how impactful that card was in general, but I would assume that it was like very, very viable in its own way. We also do have the Otama here, so it's another great 2K. We see this in Ace, but the fact that you have 3 or less life cards from the get-go with this means that this draw 2 trash 1 can be really helpful. We can also play the Yamato if you really want to, but Nami's also just essentially a little bit better having the Straw Hat type and the blocker type, but it's still very good. We do have kind of the rest of the usual suspects of the 9-drop Mihawk, the Sanji, and the 9-drop Monkey.D.Luffy secret rare as well. We're not playing the 8-drop. I don't think there's as many decks that, the 4-drops are so super important. I think the only exception would be Marco in blue and red Ace. You'd be able to get the removal from there, but I think it's fine to not include that card right now. So other than that, we do know what blue-purple Luffy looks like. I think it's going to be like, a little bit like tier 1.5. I think it gets a little bit more viable with the new Roger promo that comes out. But I think the Douglas Bull is a really, really good tech ad for specifically the Emu matchup, which again is going to be very, very present. So there it is. All right, next up we've got our Bonney. So we got 2 different builds I want to go over. We got Gmar and Juame with their builds for it as well. And they're able to do very well in their respective events. So, but you'll see that these are very, very similar builds as well. There is like the weird tech ad. I'm going to say weird, and I mean weird good. We do have the Enel, so this is normally a Lim card, which, spoilers, we will see a Lim in a little bit, but being able to say if you have 2 or more rested characters, draw 3 and trash 2 cards from your hand. So being able to do that is really great, and this is a deck that we do have options to have rested characters a little bit easier, right? So not terrible. It doesn't count itself in this deck compared to others, but that can be some really good cycle. We also do have the new Uta, so that's kind of, I think, like the idea for what this Uta can accomplish. So instead of 2 of your Dawn cards active, then you cannot play this character with set 2 cards active, then you cannot play character cards with base cost of 5 or more during this turn, and then on KO you get to play 1 character card with cost of 5 or less from your hand rested. So this can play the Enel. This will see itself rested, and then you do get that draw 3 trash 2. So a neat little tech ad for this deck, and I think that's really neat. Obviously there's some other really good 5-drops for Bonnies. You got Cavendish or X-Drake, but interesting to see the Enel there, because you also do get the Trafalgar Law effect with it too. So because you do play the 5 cost or less rested, so Enel does get that kind of interaction for it. So this is a really, really unique list. So I wanted to kind of go over. It doesn't have like the standard stuff I've been seeing, and also some changes from like OP12 Bonnies that most people aren't playing. Doflamingo, I don't think it's as impactful as it used to be for the other decks that just kind of exist here. Emu can really easily play around it. You really just kind of stop their leader attack. Like Ace doesn't really care that much. Like being able to stun leader is kind of dumb, but like doesn't hurt you too bad because you also still have like their 10-drop new gates. And I think that this is a pretty, a really interesting value version of it. So there's that one. And then we do have, I would say, a little bit more standard as well. Again, we've been seeing a lot of people playing like the Law and Beppo in comparison, right? Just being able to get like the plus 2k on your leader is a little bit more impactful, even though like your opponent's going to be swinging with a bunch of 7k pluses all the time. It is nice to be able to get out of them a little bit easier instead of like preventing the attacking. We do see like, I'd say like, this is a little bit more of a standard build for it too. The other thing is that 9-drop Zoro. I think this deck is, this card's always been like, I'd say, arguably good is maybe the best way to say it. It's never been like my favorite card because I feel like sometimes to get max value for it's a little bit reaching, but removal for this card is at an all-time low, right? I think the only cards that really interact with it in general are either one, Red Rock, or Stussy, and not everyone's playing Stussy, so if Emu's not playing this is a really good card for it. And then Red Rock is played against, Ace is playing it, but it's not as present, so you don't see it all the time. So I think like there's a lot of decks that you can check by just having this card being played on curve. I think also a lot of decks are taking a little bit more time to set up, so it's really easy to be at a high life total early with Bonney to be able to play this. And I think it's arguably one of the best times to play 9-drop Zoro in this game. You guys can check me if you want, but it's been interesting to say, like, you know what, I really don't have a way to interact with this card, and it does get to attack for a lot. So I do think it's a kind of mandatory add for Bonney, which I don't think I've ever felt like that in previous metas, but I could be wrong on that one. So anyways, here are the two builds for Bonney. Congratulations to Gmar and Juame for their finishes there. All right, we've got 3 purple decks to end this video. We're going to start off with Quentin's version of the purple and yellow Charlotte Pudding, which was an unexpected top 16, at least for me, for the French regionals here. So this is, a little bit of an older leader, right? This came from OP08, being able to say, when attacking, you turn 2 cards from the top of your life face up to add 1 Dawn rested. So being able to get that ramp is really, really nice. You have some ways to get to the top end, and then you do have some ways to play the Charlotte Linlin, which I do think that, Life Burn can be really, really strong in this format. Both Ace and Emu are decks that just don't have like a lot of life. Emu having 4, Ace having 3. So being able to get like this guaranteed burn damage is really great. And then also 10-drop 12Ks, like neither of those decks have like a really great way to interact with them either. So I do think that you can have like a little bit of a rough matchup into Zoro, since it does get a little bit aggressive for you, but it is, I think, like a really good like kind of tech add for it. So personally, I've been thinking like there are some ways for like yellow to burn into this format a little bit more. My idea is like maybe trying some koala, so I'm going to doing some testing because of that too. But I think pudding gets a lot of advantage from that. But also we do have, again, these new 7-cost pudding card from PRBO2. So this being able to also get the usage of being able to play the card and also play the Katakuri is also just fantastic for this deck and how it works. So this is definitely a deck that I want to try out as well. I know a lot of people were theory crafting this deck and playing in PRBO2, and then so being able to get like this, I'd say like a slightly better format where you get to 10-drop a little bit easier, and the fact that you get to use the burn damage a little bit more consistently is really, really, really strong for it. So I don't have much more to say with this deck. I do think that it's cool to see that it got in this top 16, and what kind of happens sometimes is that someone like kind of quote unquote proves that a deck is viable in a format, and so when that happens, a lot more people are going to be trying it out. And I can definitely see that with pudding, right? People have been wanting to make this leader very viable for a long time, and I think there are some signs that this could be a format where the way this deck works can be really, really good for it. So not much more to say, but congratulations to Quentin for their top 16 there. And then next up we've got Lim. So this is Antonio's version of the deck here, and this just kind of got like some really good things from OP13, right? The biggest thing I would say is these shanks. So real quick, I feel like I'm inclined to say this every video, so I'm going to say it right now. So on play, set all your Dawn cards as active. Then you cannot play cards from your hand during this turn. The way that this sentence is structured is not my favorite, but I will kind of clarify a little bit. So essentially what it really means is that you cannot play cards from your hand during your turn with their own cost, right? So it means that you can't say, well, I want to play 5 for Sanji, or I want to play 4 for this, Demon Aura 9 sword style Oscar Blaze Dead Man's Game, right? So you can't do that. Those are the things you can't do, but you can play cards off of effects that are existing otherwise. So the biggest one for this deck is Limp, so you can pay 3 to rest and add 1 of your Dawn as active, and then you can play an Odyssey type character that costs 5 or less from your hand. That will play off of, you can use that effect and get the intended effect, even though you play Shanks, which is really, really nice. So now you have like a really, like, I would say Shanks is like arguably the best boss monster that Lim has kind of seen for this deck. I do think it's a little bit interesting to not play the 9-cost Zoro in this deck, because I do think it's like arguably very good right now. The difference that you do have to play it rested against Emu means that they can attack into it a little bit easier, but I do think it's kind of worth the add in this current format, and so I am a little bit surprised to not see it here. But otherwise, Lim has always been a pretty strong deck. It has won some regionals, has been doing mildly well up to this point. I think like the last 2 formats haven't been the best. I think OP10 was where it really, really shined, but we still do have this value here. We do also get like the 1-drop Lim has been like fantastic for the deck. 5-drop Sanji, another new card from OP13 to help us out. So on play, set 2 of your Dawn cards as active, but also end of your turn if your leader has Film or Straw Hat Crew, set up to 1 of your Dawn cards as active. So what you get to really do is that, so let's say that you are on 6 Dawn, sorry, you're on 5 Dawn, no, sorry, it is 6 Dawn. So if you're on 6 Dawn, you play Sanji for 5, you get 2 Dawn back, so you have 3 open, and then you use your leader effect to play another thing. So being able to play 2 5-drops is fantastic, and it also means that you can have like a Nels effect off immediately, and you get those kind of additional benefits. So also end of turn, getting that 1 Dawn active every turn is great for stuff like Dead Man's Game, the Judgment of Hell, and Slow Beam Sword. So I think all that is very great, and this is one of my favorite decks to play, and it's really cool to see it still do well into this format. So this is a build from Antonio. Congratulations for their finish there. And to wrap it up, we've got Darren with their version version of Gol.D.Roger able to get a top 16. It was the only non Ace Emu Zoro deck to get a top 16 finish in the TAC Games Online Treasure Cup. So honestly, this deck is pretty linear for at least this build. I think there are different ways to build it, but I mean, this is the easy, not easy, I don't know, the template, I guess, maybe to play Gol.D.Roger is that you play a lot of your ramp, you play a lot of your Gol.D.Roger cards, and then your top end is Newgate, because we don't have 8-drop promo right now. We have Shanks, and then we also have the Gol.D.Roger. So I haven't really mentioned it, but this card is like weirdly really good right now. It's existed for about a year, and this is probably the most viable it's ever been. There's just like a lot of decks that kind of revolve around being at 0 life and playing a blocker to kind of prevent you from losing, and Gol.D.Roger's like, cool, anyways, I'm going to just attack, and you're gonna have a bad time with it. So just worth being able to ramp to it quickly and play it for 10. Newgate's also just kind of our first like big drop, since if we're going to 10 Dawn based on how Gol.D.Roger works, we have to go, we have to still attach a Dawn to our leader. So even if we're at 10 Dawn at the start of your turn, you're going to still be at 9. So Newgate's still really good there. And then we have Shanks, our Gol.D.Roger can play afterwards, but I think that's all just very clear for how the deck works. So we do have like a lot of consistency. We do have a lot of ways to ramp. The fact that Buggy can be like our safety 2K that ramps this one is really nice. And I don't have much to say about this build. I know that I'd say the consistency for it is a little bit lower than you need at this current moment, but I'm not surprised that it did get a top, and I think this is a big accomplishment from Darren there. So here's the build there. Congratulations for their top 16 finish there. But all in all, here is the kind of the events that happened this weekend. Again, there's going to be probably a little bit less content from me in this format, just because there's going to be less events, but also the events that we do have are going to look like this most of the time. I'm going to be honest, right? There are going to be some breakout performances. We did see some breakout performances for these events too, but there's just going to be a lot less. And I think this is more kind of gameplay focus. If you guys do not like playing in this format, I think it's understood that it's okay. It's okay to not like Emu Ace Zoro, right? And not have a deck that you enjoy playing in this format, because these guys are a little bit of like some bully gatekeepers for other decks to exist as well. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.